Okay, they said they can hear us, so they get us.
All right.
So I put out on
Hello, everyone.
on Twitter earlier that I would, anybody who could stump the team would get a hoodie. So I guess we have to give a hoodie to the GBC because it completely stumped all of us for learning how to do our own technology. Were we in this building for the last meeting?
No.
No. Okay. So just so everyone knows, on the call we are in. We switched buildings, so we're all adjusting to one, where everything is, and then two, the fun new technology that we have in these rooms. So we're managing to stump ourselves a lot, which is no small feat. Okay. All right. So we didn't have a ton on the agenda for today. Basically just some basic housekeeping and announcements. And we also have some questions coming in, I saw, because again, I did put out the challenge, like any questions you have, you've got a full room here, stump them, and maybe you'll get something cool for it. So, there's always that. Plus, it's fun to stump the team. Okay, so as far as updates go, one of the big ones is the meeting frequency. This is a community meeting. It is for the community, by the community and the team here, and wanted to get feedback on the bi-weekly working, should we do monthly, things like that. So I put up a quick straw poll. If you want to click that link, it's in the working doc, and give us your thoughts on frequency and what you'd like to see. And then I am going to skip to the third item on the agenda because that also is me talking, and then I'll turn it over to Aglash for the release cadence. But now you're moving it around. Great. If you are headed to KubeCon or Cloud Native Conf, they're essentially the same thing. One's right next to each other. It's in Austin, the first week of December. We've got, you probably have seen on the agenda, there's a couple of sessions that are listed as gRPC SIG, which, fun story, made the Kubernetes community ask if they had incorporated in gRPC because the SIG term is so associated with Kubernetes. They thought perhaps we were now merging. And I had to say, like, no, it's not all about you. So that is a term that we don't use, but they do, and CNCF uses it a lot too. But it is for working groups, and we don't have the formal process yet. That will be coming, but I know a couple of people have reached out. There was some discussion about doing like kind of a little hack day or something like that with folks together. And I mentioned we've got this space. So if you are interested in doing something with this space, if you've got something you want to just get a bunch of people together and let's talk about something with the project, please reach out to me, and we'll work it out. We'll make it happen. I have heard from a couple of customers and a couple of people here on the team that are wanting to get some of that face-to-face time with the community. So that's a great opportunity for that. We will definitely have a lot of that, kind of like the big round table thing, come and bring your questions and talk through the project. But if you have something specific that you'd like to share with the community or have a discussion on, please reach out and we'll get it booked and we'll get you in and set up. Okay, do you want to talk about upcoming release cadence?
Yeah, I think just a short update. So we are approaching the end of the year, but we will still try to keep up our 6-week release cadence. One of the things that you might notice is that our RC releases may stay RC for longer period than usual, because it will just take a longer time for like other teams and other people to verify our RC packages. So So as we do our next maybe couple of releases towards the holidays, when we publish RC releases, if somebody in the community can actually test, validate those RC packages, provide us feedback, that would actually help us improve the quality of these releases and get us out quicker as well. So just wanted to let everyone know what's happening for the next couple of releases.
Cool. Does anybody else have any general announcements you want to make before we dive into the questions? Okay, cool.
I actually had one. We've been asked for topics people would like to cover for gRPC at KubeCon. If there is any suggestions here, that would be good to collect from people.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear thoughts on talks you'd like to hear about, topics you think should be covered at any of the CNCF conferences. Definitely give us our feedback for that, or give us your feedback for that. Sorry, coffee hasn't kicked in yet. I see, related to the release question, we've got a question from Arpit asking about gRPC C core has not released for 8 weeks. Is there an RC out?
Yes. Yes. So basically, I think because I don't think we package gRPC core separately, so there's no specific RC for that. But the release branch is available, and the packages have started rolling out. Like, I think many of the wrap languages like Python and so on are ready to cut. So you should start seeing the RC packages go into 1.7 as soon as they go live. But in terms of tagging it, we will tag once most of the packages are verified, which should be any day now, actually.
Do we send out an email with the RC to the mailing list whenever we have it?
We technically should. If we have not been sending that out, I can take an action item to follow up and make sure that we do.
Okay, cool. All right, so we've got a couple of great questions already in the working doc. I don't know if you guys have it up, but there a couple of them in particular are detailed. So looks like the first one's from Alan. Do you want to unmute and ask if you're on the call?
Hey, yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me all right?
We hear you.
Awesome. So yeah, I don't know what the process is. This is my first one of these, but basically kind of.
Oh yeah, well, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, as I kind of laid it in the doc, we've deployed this gRPC service. We're running on Google Container Engine, and really kind of the big thing that I haven't seen as many talks about or as much kind of detail about is like the architecture and the configuration for exposing those services outside of Kubernetes clusters. So like obviously we could use Envoy or something as like sidecar proxies if all the traffic was within the cluster. But our kind of problem is like right now we've got a couple we've got a replica set and a couple like load balance services. So we've got a few public IPs that we're trying to kind of balance across. And it doesn't seem like it's a super performant solution. Doing this like L3, L4 load balancing, the load is not necessarily evenly spread. We don't have great visibility into where traffic is going or where the latency is coming from because there's so many hops from kind of GCLB to kube proxy to the pods. So I'm wondering if you guys have advice about, I guess, configuring that, observability for that kind of in the wild, and if something like Envoy is an L7, we don't have it. We've only got Nginx as an ingress, and I don't think it supports gRPC right now. But if adding like an Envoy ingress would be the best thing to do going forward.
I actually missed the pieces of the question. So if you have answer, go ahead. But otherwise, I'll go ahead. I think Envoy ingress is the right thing to do at this point of time.
I'm not sure if they can hear. There was other comments about, if I speak like this, can you all hear me?
Yeah,
If I speak like this, can you all hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I was saying at this point of time, using Envoy Ingress is probably the best option.
And I guess if the problems are with latency in the 99 percentile, I'm not sure L7 just by its nature will do better than that, unless it's caused by hot backings and things like that.
You're reading something in the doc?
It is written some in the community.
We've got a big scenario.
So, I mean, part of the problem is you don't know where the 99th percentile is coming from. So if it's due to imbalanced load and things like that, then yeah, I'm sorry, the L7, I guess, would help with that. But otherwise, I'm not sure that it is a solve for unknown latency problems. I guess, here, I'll give you a link. It's the bit.ly gRPC meetings.
Yeah, I guess kind of a corollary thing here is I haven't had a ton of success with kind of understanding our clients are all C core client and the server is gRPC Go, but in both cases, I've kind of had trouble getting like per request tracing of the latency once we're in the gRPC stack. And so we've tried kind of as best we can to eliminate those as like potential sources of latency, something like, you know, the queue on the client side or something. But I don't know if there's a document or something you guys could refer me to get kind of better. You know, we've got like stack driver tracing throughout the whole thing, but the gRPC chunk is kind of a black box right now.
Where's Trace? Do you know where tracing is standing for Go? Progress on it?
The review of stats handlers for tracing, Mena, do you have anything on that?
The tracing will Go, so we have the Go XNet trace library in our code, that is for concurrency, right?
Well, I think you've definitely stumped the team. Somebody's getting a hoodie. It's his first meeting, too. First meeting, he stumps everyone, and he gets sweet swag.
I got to admit, I was pretty excited about the hoodie when I signed myself to this.
So I think what we can do is we should probably get back to this. I think we should ask the census team on where we are with this, and we'll update the doc.
Right. So I mean, so there's Doug. Where are we standing on tracing though?
So which part of it specifically? So there's census tracing, there's extent tracing, like Minhan mentioned.
In order, like if you're trying to diagnose if the server, how much of the server was the cause for latency and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like some form of profiling or something, right?
We don't have a very good way to debug this out of the box.
Sounded like they were asking for stack driver integration for tracing.
There should be stack driver integration. It's not driven from our side, but I believe they have some integration libraries.
So is this a question of like out of the box, gRPC does not deliver the stack driver integration they're looking for, but people have to do something to get?
Yeah, I mean, to clarify, like we've got our own kind of solution where we like stuff the trace ID and stuff in the metadata, so we can like propagate and make the server side the child span of the client side call, which is cool and lets us account for like how much latency our service is adding. But it doesn't, client side or server side, we don't see any of the gRPC internals, so we don't know like vision or like client side queuing, or like we can't account for that, right? We just see sometimes a gRPC call goes into the gRPC client and it comes out 150 milliseconds later. Sometimes it comes out 50 milliseconds later. Sometimes it comes out, you know, like it times out and it doesn't come out. So
yeah, I mean,
anything to get more visibility into that would be amazing.
So are you familiar with the stats handler API that we do have in gRPC Go? Oh. So sorry, I was asking if you're familiar with the stats handler interface that we do have in gRPC Go.
I actually haven't worked extensively with the stats handler. I kind of spent more time looking at the C core implementation because I think we presume that the latency might be client side.
Okay. So I think that might give you the information that you're looking for. That has essentially callbacks that it will invoke through like the life cycle of both a connection and an RPC. And so you can collect timing information from that. But I don't think there's any sort of out of the box thing that we have that will take all that information and present it nicely to you. You have to sort of build that yourself on top of the callbacks that we provide.
Understood. Cool. No, that's a great look into.
Okay. Does that answer your question then?
Like I feel like.
Or are you hoping for something better, a feature request, or?
Sorry.
Is this a feature request for something better, or do you still have questions after that?
I mean, I can always come back once I've looked into the stats handler, I suppose. The feature, I guess the ask, like the higher level ask would be, you know, it'd be cool to see some kind of like reference. I know there's the load balancing doc, but you know, understanding a little bit about the space of like accessing from outside Kubernetes to like a gRPC service. I don't know if like I said, I don't know if I've seen a ton of examples of that. And when we were going at it, we kind of, we weren't sure a lot of people are really doing this.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense.
Cool.
Actually, can we start a thread about this in gRPC users, and we can involve our OpenCensus teams as well, and just make sure that we address this properly? That would be useful, I think. Like starting a thread about this and discussing this better.
It might be good to also just get on a smaller call and kind of talk through it more.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if Istio would help.
I don't know, it sounded like they were more interested in like the intra-server timings and things, or versus like, I don't know if Census is really trying to look at the details of whether it's the gRPC code's fault or the application's fault that latency looks the way it does.
I mean, at the very least, if you had your tracing enabled, you could just compare the good cases and the bad cases.
Sure. It wouldn't necessarily pinpoint the cause and give you a breakdown of where time is spent, though. And if that's what they need, then.
Yeah, I think let's start a thread. Let's discuss this, and if more people want to get involved and so on, if you need to have focused discussions, let's have it, and let's try and figure out exactly what gap we need to fill here.
Yeah, it's a good use case scenario. So we're gonna give you a solid. We'll get back to you.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, then there's the.
What were you gonna say?
Then there's I guess the next question about limiting the number of concurrent RPCs across all client on the server side across all clients. Which I think, like, there's the issue on Java. I think it's something that's weak across the board, except for maybe C.
It's not just the, I guess, RPC. It's more about like limiting the connections.
Oh, y'all are okay. Limiting the number of connections. I see.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in Go, the way you would limit the number of connections, is that per IP or globally on a server?
Globally on a server. Oh, yeah.
Okay. There's a package in Go that allows you to limit the number of connections on a net.listener. It's like netutil in XNet that you can set a limit on how many connections it will allow.
Okay. For me, it's more, I'm just in C++ actually.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
talking about
the
Go.
original question was Go, but I added that as a comment that, C++ and Java also has this as listed as pending. So.
And just to be clear, the thing that I raised here, I think, is subtly different from the max connections, because yeah, we do have that in Go, but we could potentially, like, what would be ideal, I think, is if we could have potentially many idle connections, but constrain the number of Go routines that actually are working on streams at any point. There's a to-do for that in the XNet HTTP2 package. It just hasn't been implemented.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. I mean, you can configure the maximum number of streams per connection, but you're talking about across connections, the number of streams that you would have total?
Yeah, because there's a certain inflexibility, right? If you say like every connection can have at most 50 streams, you might kind of hold back, like if the server is not really that loaded, there's not many connections at one point, you may want to so it like setting max handlers seems like it would map best to the actual resources of the machine. This is to kind of estimate connections and streams per connection.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there technically is a way you could do it today with this thing that we have called in-tap handle that gets executed essentially like really early on in the life cycle of a stream, like before we even read the headers, I believe. And so you could, at that point, essentially just increment a counter or check a counter, I mean. And then you can actually you can return an error to reject the stream. I don't know how do we intend to support that forever. Like, is that a good long-term solution? I think the other languages don't have an analog, and so I don't even know if that facility is a good one to be using, but it definitely works for now. I think it says it's experimental in the comments.
Yeah, I think C++ has something where you can delay accepting, or you can be told, you can sort of have things sit for a little bit before you accept the stream. I think Java, which, I mean, that is a specific API, I think, that you have to use. In Java, you have to use something like an interceptor. It's something that in some way may be possible across languages, but it's not easy.
Yeah. That's actually, I mean, you could use a server-side interceptor also to accomplish that, and that would definitely be more stable. You'd have to essentially return an error back from the interceptor then and prevent it from reaching the application code. So you'd still incur the cost of processing the headers and all of that, but at least you'd shield your application code from being executed.
Yeah, that might be. Do you mind if I might open a thread on the users and just ask about, because I think it's something that rightly belongs in XNet HTTP2, and it seems like they've kind of carved out a config option for it. Most of my concern about jumping into it is just that how it might interact with like screen quality or like window size. Like, just there's a bunch of other features in HTTP2 that I don't want to like screw up trying to add this. In a more generic way. So I'm wondering if that's the right venue, that I could just open a thread and lay out my design, and we'll see, if it matches with all of these other concerns.
Sure, that sounds like a good idea. I wonder about putting something like that into XNet HTTP2, because either it would have to be global to your binary, and you may have multiple servers and you want to apply different limits across them, or it would essentially have to be per connection, which is what we already have a control for. And so I don't know if they would be accepting of something global, and per connection wouldn't help us in this case. So yeah, but a thread where we can talk about this would probably be a good idea.
Yeah, I just posted a quick link to there is a like I said, there's kind of a placeholder for it, and it just says to do implement.
Okay.
But yeah, that would be cool. Okay, I'll take that offline. Maybe we can talk about that.
Sounds good.
For the next question is about opening up a Go server to a WAN. What sort of configuration might you need to tweak? I do think that we've got less practice doing this, but you would probably want at least a max age and keep alive, although keep alive is point to point. So if you end up putting an L7 proxy in the middle, that proxy would need to do keep alive to the client. And then a max streams per client, which you already have. BDP is good for any environment. That's not a concern. So I think that's a much simpler sort of answer.
Yeah, I would definitely limit the number of connections allowed and the number of streams per connection.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for answering the long question.
So the next one is interest in Docker containers for doing Proto-C for the plugins and such.
Jay, do you want to talk about that?
I think I'm unmuted, right? Can you all hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Awesome. Yeah, so I've been working on backporting a few of our service APIs internally and generating clients for languages such as Python, Node, and PHP. And so in that process, I didn't want to have to install every dependency on my machine. I didn't want to have to worry about every version. So I started throwing a bunch of stuff in Docker containers, and I was curious if there was interest in the community for this. And if there was, I can work on porting that into the open source. Otherwise, I was just going to keep it closed source for now.
How is this different from the gRPC Docker library that we have? I know that's not quite well maintained, but I think we do have a.
I think it's pretty different. So for one, these images, they're just the Proto-C plugin. They're not all the rest of the dependencies. So for example, if you're doing, let's say, the Python Proto-C plugin, you're not actually even needing Python installed for this container. These containers would also probably be set up so that whenever you just run it, it probably just runs the Proto-C plugin just unconditionally as the entry point into the Docker, which can have a pretty slick experience if you're in the Docker world.
That makes sense. Cool.
These should be really trivial to maintain as well.
Yeah, they're
pretty small, right?
Yeah, they're literally 4-line Docker images, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's cool. Then we can maybe have this in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that this was probably easy enough. That there's probably interest. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all for open source.
Yeah.
I think gRPC ecosystem might be a good place to sort of like if you're going to maintain it, and if you are able to track sort of releases that matter, then why not?
Sounds good.
And you should totally demo it in our next meeting and show it off.
Okay.
All right, and we had a question from Osman, which has a link, so.
Yeah, hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, just had a quick question about that CocoaPods update. The fix was to run a previous version of CocoaPods. I was just wondering if that was still the case or if someone had looked at it over there. I've not had a chance to test it because we didn't want to push all the stuff to the newer version and have the error again, but are we just sticking to the 1.2.1 on that, or just what's the update? Thanks.
What is the exact error that you're talking about?
It's an open issue.
Yeah, it was the issue. I discussed it on, I think, the meeting a couple of weeks ago or some sessions ago, where when you were using the latest version of CocoaPods, there was a linting error in the...
I see. Yeah. So that one, CocoaPods team says they already got a fix.
Okay.
So that my understanding is like that they are gonna release it in 1.4, and I haven't tested it by myself actually.
Okay, I could just run some tests on that and then check it out and update.
Yeah, but I know like they got a fix that's already in their master. It's just a problem like when they release it.
Okay, good. I'll definitely run that and then update the issue.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions you want to put forth? That was everything we had in the working doc. If you've got anything else that's come up, or if you're working on something and then have questions, want help, we've still got some time. All right, we have 10 votes on our frequency of community meetings. Right now, biweekly is winning by 2.
I've got a quick question.
Go for it.
Sure. Could someone expand a little bit about OpenCensus, what it is, how it's different from, say, Open Tracing, and what internals of gRPC it instruments?
So I can take a crack. So Census has been a library we've used internally at Google. When we built gRPC, we wanted to use a package, and so there is another team at Google, Census team. They are planning to build an OpenCensus library or working on OpenCensus libraries. From what I know, their plan is to make it fully compatible in formats with Zipkin, etc. And they may put open tracing APIs also, but I'm not up to date on their precise plans right now.
Well, I do have some good news that I can share, which is that someone that I was working with on the developer relations team on the Go side has now moved over to the Census side, and I made it very clear to her that as soon as she was full up to speed, I was bringing her in here. She was going to get to take all the Census questions because I know that's a hot topic.
I think what makes sense is, and I'll also raise it with Census team, is they need to put out before code, they need to put out what exactly they're doing and what they're not doing.
Yeah.
So there's confusion.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of questions about it, and so we will get that on a future agenda, and you can bring all of your Census questions, and we'll put them on the spot and get as many answers as we can. But that is a recent change for them, so that'll be good.
And exactly how Census and gRPC sort of plug together is a little different between each language as well.
In general, is it tracking like internal spans of the internal components of gRPC, or does it just give you one big high-level span that says gRPC was here?
There is, I think as far as spans go, I'm not even sure if there is a gRPC was here span. It's more that there's the propagation, I thought, which maybe you know more, Kun, as far as which span. We don't add a span, do we?
On the client side, we do.
Okay. And then there's a lot more stats keeping information that's sort of separate from tracing, but there's sort of other pieces to Census other than just tracing.
Yeah, typically census has done all three: stats keeping, tracing, and integration with some monitoring backend.
Ryan, did you have a question, or did you
That was
already
my
ask
question.
it? Okay, cool. It looks like we also have a question in the chat. It just says from D. I'm not sure who D is. Going through the benchmarking published from gRPC, it seems Python have higher latency on all fronts. Do you suggest implementing server in Python is a good idea?
I'll answer that. We have plans to improve the performance of Python. Mostly for the last year, our customers have been asking for features more than performance. So we've been focused more on features than performance. It's not contraindicated to implement a service in Python, and it will get faster.
I don't know if there's any follow-up to that, but by all means, feel free to unmute.
Thanks for the question.
All right, any other questions? All right, sounds like that's it. Okay, so just to recap, take a look at the working doc, give us your feedback on meeting frequency, and also if you're planning to be at the CNCF conference at the start of December, please reach out if you're interested in having some space there with the meeting space.
There is one last question.
Yeah, we did have another question from D. Any best practicing recommendations? I'm assuming that's about Python. Implementing server in Python.
No best practices to share in this wide open meeting. Absolutely start a thread on the mailing list and we'll put something in writing. In short, I'd say that our example code demonstrates our current best practices. We keep it up to date as our understanding of what's best changes.
Yeah, but it's a good point to start a thread because I'm sure there's other people in the community that have done similar and have feedback as well. So we can get their thoughts too. All right, great. And if any other questions come up, by all means, start a thread, reach out that way. We will update on the working doc, the open issues, and start some additional threads and conversations and get feedback for you. Thanks, everybody, for being here today, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.